Clint Eastwood sat in his old but well-maintained 1978 Ford pickup truck, parked outside a shabby grocery store in the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. The sun was setting, bathing the asphalt in orange light, while the hot desert wind carried the scent of dry earth and gasoline from a nearby gas station. At 94, Clint still looked strong, his gray hair neatly combed back, his eyes squinting from the habit of staring into the distance, and his hands, though wrinkled, firmly gripping the steering wheel. He hadn't come for groceries but to pick up a few old wooden crates the store owner had promised to give him for free. Clint planned to turn them into shelves for his garage. But as he stepped out of the truck, his life suddenly changed. The store was crowded. It was Friday evening, the end of the workweek. The air smelled of fresh bread from the bakery in the corner and slightly rancid oil from the fryer where chicken wings were cooking. Clint grabbed a basket and headed toward the back of the store, where the crates were stacked. He overheard snippets of conversations. An elderly woman complaining about prices, two teenagers arguing over a video game, and the cashier, a young girl with a butterfly tattoo on her neck, trying to keep up with scanning groceries. Everything seemed ordinary until a man in a security uniform approached him. "Sir, come with me," the guard said in a low voice. His badge read Dwayne. He was stocky, with a closely trimmed beard and eyes that looked at Clint with suspicion. Clint stopped, holding an empty crate in his hands. His eyebrows rose slightly. "What's the problem?" he asked calmly, his voice hoarse but firm as always. "We got a report that you stole something," Dwayne replied, crossing his arms over his chest. "Let's check your basket and pockets." Clint set the crate on the floor and slowly turned to the guard. He didn't raise his voice, didn't flinch, he just stood there, solid as a rock in a storm. "I didn't take anything except this crate, which I was allowed to have." "You can ask the owner," he said, nodding toward the counter. Dwayne frowned. "We're going to check anyway. Come with me to the back room." Clint felt irritation boiling inside him, but his face remained unreadable. He knew arguing with the guard was pointless. Dwayne had already decided he was guilty. Slowly, he followed the guard, feeling the eyes of shoppers on him. Some whispered, others turned away. In the back room, a cramped space with metal shelves and the stale smell of cardboard, Dwayne started searching Clint's pockets. Nothing but an old leather wallet and his truck keys. "Told you," Clint said quietly, looking Dwayne straight in the eye. But the guard didn't back down. "We'll check the cameras. If there's anything, we'll find it." An hour later, the police detained Clint. It turned out that a customer had called 911, claiming they saw an old man in a denim jacket put something in his pocket and leave quickly. The store cameras showed only Clint taking the crate and heading for the exit, but that was enough for the case to go to court. For elderly people in America, raised on news about crime and legal scandals, it sounded like a typical story, an old man accused of petty theft, and the system, without investigating properly, dragging him into its gears. 2 weeks later, Clint stood in the Maricopa County courtroom. The courtroom was old, with worn wooden benches and the scent of lacquer that had faded decades ago. A ceiling fan hummed but didn't help with the stifling air. The judge, a man in his 60s with a round face and graying hair, sat behind a high bench, flipping through papers. His name was Edward Crowley, and he had a reputation for cracking jokes at defendants, especially if the case seemed trivial. "So, Mr. Eastwood," the judge began, lifting his eyes from the documents. "Are you the Clint Eastwood? Dirty Harry? For a few dollars more?" He smiled, waiting for a reaction. The courtroom chuckled. A few elderly spectators in the back, who had come to watch the hearing, exchanged glances. Everyone knew Clint from the screen, but here he stood in a simple denim shirt, stripped of Hollywood glamour. Clint didn't smile back. He stood straight, hands clasped in front of him, and calmly replied, "Yes, that's me. But today, I'm not here for my roles, I'm here because of a misunderstanding." Judge Crowley smirked. "A misunderstanding, you say? The store claims you tried to steal." He glanced at the papers, a wooden crate worth $5. "Well, it's not $1 million heist, but still interesting. Tell me your side of the story." Clint stepped forward. His voice was steady, but there was a strength in it that the years hadn't erased. I arranged with the owner to take some old crates for free. Everything was legal. The security guard assumed I was a thief without checking the facts. Then someone called the police, and here I am. The prosecutor, a young woman with sharp eyes and a tightly wound bun, stood up. Your Honor, we have a witness who saw the defendant put something in his pocket. The cameras do not disprove this. We believe it was an attempted theft. The judge leaned back in his chair, smiling. Mr. Eastwood, I've seen you shoot bad guys on screen. Are you telling me you're now stealing crates? Is this preparation for a new movie? The courtroom laughed again, but Clint didn't flinch. He looked at the judge, then at the prosecutor, and said, I didn't steal anything. And I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to prove that the system was wrong. The laughter died down. Judge Crowley leaned forward, his smile fading. He realized that this wasn't just an old actor standing before him, it was a man who had no intention of backing down. All right, the judge said. Let's see the evidence. But I warn you, if you're lying, I won't be as lenient as your directors. Clint nodded. He knew a tough fight lay ahead, but his eyes still held the same fire that once made millions believe in his heroes. This time, he wasn't fighting fictional villains, he was battling real injustice. And he was doing it not with fists, but with words. The Maricopa County courtroom buzzed with whispers. Clint Eastwood stood before the podium, his figure as unwavering as an oak in the desert. Judge Crowley adjusted his glasses and nodded to the prosecutor to call the first witness. The atmosphere was tense, the scent of coffee from a cheap machine in the corner mixed with the faint aroma of disinfectant used to wipe down the benches. Outside the window, the hum of cars on Highway 10 only reinforced the reality of the moment. The first witness was Dwayne, a store security guard. He entered the courtroom with confidence, but his eyes avoided Clint. Prosecutor Emily Wright got straight to the point. Mr. Thompson, tell us what you saw that evening, she said, holding a tablet with notes. Dwayne cleared his throat and began, I saw this man, he nodded at Clint, taking a box from the back of the store. He was acting suspiciously, moving quickly toward the exit without stopping at the register. Then, the cashier called me and said a customer had seen him slip something into his pocket. I stopped him for a check. Clint listened without interrupting. His face remained calm, but his fingers curled slightly into a fist. Judge Crowley leaned forward. And what did you find during the search? He asked. Nothing, Dwayne admitted, shrugging. But that doesn't mean he didn't ditch something on the way to the back room. The courtroom murmured. Clint raised his hand, requesting to speak. The judge nodded. I didn't ditch anything because I didn't take anything, Clint said, his voice low and measured. I had an agreement with the owner, Mr. Garcia, to take the boxes. He offered them himself because he didn't need them. You can ask him. Prosecutor Wright quickly interjected. Your Honor, Mr. Garcia is currently unavailable for testimony. He left for Mexico to visit his family and won't be back for 2 weeks. The judge stroked his chin. Convenient for you, Mr. Eastwood. But we have another witness. Call Mrs. Doris Henderson. A 75-year-old woman with tightly pinned silver hair and thick-lensed glasses slowly approached the stand. She clutched her purse tightly, as if afraid someone might steal it right there in the courtroom. The prosecutor began her questioning. Mrs. Henderson, you called 911 that evening. What did you see? Doris adjusted her glasses and spoke in a trembling voice. I was near the canned goods aisle when I saw this man. He took a box and then quickly shoved something into his jacket pocket. I thought it might have been a can of tuna or something. He looked. Well, you know, suspicious. I told the cashier, then called the police. Clint turned to her, his expression not angry but rather puzzled. He asked quietly. Mrs. Henderson, are you sure it was me? The store was crowded. She hesitated, glancing at him. Well. It was someone in a denim jacket. I don't see well without my glasses, but I definitely saw someone hiding something.
Judge Crowley sighed.
So, we have a witness with poor eyesight and a security guard with no evidence.
Mr. Eastwood, do you have an attorney?
I'll represent myself, Clint replied. I don't need someone to speak for me when I can tell the truth myself. The courtroom chuckled, but this time, the laughter was uneasy.
The judge raised an eyebrow. Are you sure?
This isn't a movie, there are no retakes.
I'm sure, Clint said firmly.
Then he did something that surprised everyone. Instead of arguing or blaming, he turned to Doris. Mrs. Henderson, I don't blame you. You did what you thought was right. But I want to understand, why did you think I was a thief?
Because of my jacket? My age?
Or because I was alone? Doris blinked, clearly not expecting that question.
I don't know.
You just seemed like you weren't from around here. And I heard there have been a lot of thefts in stores. Clint nodded, then turned to Dwayne.
And you, Dwayne?
You saw me take a box and immediately assumed I was a thief.
Why?
You didn't even ask what I was doing.
Dwayne frowned.
We have a lot of thefts. An old guy in an old jacket grabbing a box and heading for the exit, that looks suspicious. So, you judge by appearance, Clint said quietly. Not by facts. Judge Crowley tapped his pen on the desk. Mr. Eastwood, this isn't a talk show. Do you have evidence, or just words? Clint smiled, barely, but confidently. I have something better. I want you to review the security footage again. Not just from inside the store, but from the parking lot. And I want to call another witness, the cashier, Annie Rodriguez. The prosecutor objected. Your Honor, that witness was not on the original list. I'll allow it, the judge said, his curiosity piqued. Let's see where this leads. Annie, a young woman with a butterfly tattoo, stepped into the courtroom. Her hands trembled as she took the oath. Clint asked only one question. Annie, do you remember what happened when I came into the store? Did anyone else take boxes that evening? She nodded. Yes. There was another man. Younger, wearing a denim jacket like yours. He grabbed a box but then put it back and left quickly. I thought he changed his mind, but maybe he took something. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge ordered the parking lot footage to be reviewed. Half an hour later, a technician brought in a laptop, and on the screen appeared a man, not Clint, but someone else, around 40, in a denim jacket, rushing into a car with a bag in hand. The timestamp matched the moment Doris called 911. Judge Crowley removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. So, we have confused witnesses and a possible real thief that no one noticed. Mr. Eastwood, did you know about this? I suspected, Clint replied. But I wanted you to figure it out yourselves. Because if I just said I was innocent, you wouldn't believe me. You had to see the truth. Then came the twist. Prosecutor Wright suddenly stood up. Your Honor, there's more. We received an anonymous call last night. Someone claims this isn't just a mistake. They said the charges against Mr. Eastwood are revenge. We haven't confirmed it yet, but it may be connected to his past. The courtroom fell silent. The judge leaned forward. Revenge? For what? Clint turned to the judge, his eyes narrowing. I don't know. But if someone is trying to set me up, I'll find out who. And why? The Maricopa County courtroom was filled with tension that could be felt in every breath. The sun was setting behind the Phoenix horizon, casting long shadows through the dusty windows. The hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound when Prosecutor Emily Wright finished her statement about potential revenge. Judge Crowley, whose skepticism was slowly turning into curiosity, turned to Clint Eastwood. Mr. Eastwood, he said, tapping his pen on the table, you've heard the prosecutor. If this is true, someone really wanted to frame you. Do you have any idea who that might be?" Clint stood still, his gray hair barely shimmering in the dim light of the courtroom. He slowly inhaled, as if gathering his thoughts, and then spoke, his voice quiet but piercing the air like a gunshot in an old western. "I've had a lot of people in my life who might hold a grudge against me. I've made movies that not everyone liked. I've said things that not everyone wanted to hear. But I never thought anyone would go this far to accuse me of stealing a $5 box." The room chuckled softly, but the laughter quickly died down as Clint continued. "I don't know who did it. But I know that the truth always comes to light if you give it a chance. So I'm asking you, Your Honor, not to rush to a verdict. Give me one day to figure out who is behind this call." Judge Crowley furrowed his brow. "You're asking for a delay to conduct your own investigation? This isn't a detective show, Mr. Eastwood." "Maybe not," Clint replied with a barely noticeable smile. "But I'm not the type to give up without a fight. And I won't be fighting with my fists, I'll do it with words and facts." Prosecutor Wright objected. "Your Honor, this is absurd. We can't allow the defendant to search for evidence on his own." But the judge raised his hand, stopping her. "I've seen a lot in this courtroom, but this is a first. Mr. Eastwood, you have 24 hours. If you don't bring anything substantial, I'll make a decision based on what I have. Court is adjourned." The next day, Clint returned to the courtroom. He looked the same, denim shirt, straight posture, but in his hands, he held a thin folder of papers. The room was packed, rumors about the case had spread throughout Phoenix, and retirees who remembered Clint from his golden years in Hollywood came to see how it would end. The air smelled of sweat and anticipation, and the murmurs of the crowd were like the buzz of a beehive. Judge Crowley banged the gavel, calling for silence. "Mr. Eastwood, what have you brought?" Clint placed the folder on the table and spoke. "Yesterday, I called a few old acquaintances. One of them is a private investigator who owes me a favor from the days of filming Unforgiven. He traced the anonymous call to a number registered to a person I knew 40 years ago. His name is Roy Jenkins." The room buzzed. The judge leaned forward. "And who is this Roy Jenkins?" "He was a producer," Clint explained. "We worked together in the 80s, but had a falling out over money. I refused to appear in his film because I thought the script was weak. He lost $1 million deal and blamed me for it. The last I heard, he lives in Tucson and still holds a grudge." Prosecutor Wright stood up. "This is just speculation. You have no proof it was him who made the call." Clint opened the folder and pulled out a printout. "Here's a call record my friend got from the phone company. The voice matches what I remember. And also, Roy was in Phoenix the day I was detained. His car was spotted on camera near the store an hour before the incident." The judge took the printout and read it carefully. Then he looked at Clint. "Are you saying that Jenkins framed you because of an old grudge?" "I'm saying he could have paid someone to accuse me," Clint replied. "Maybe that young guy in the denim jacket that Annie saw. But I'm not here to accuse without evidence. I'm here to show that hasty judgments are what got us into this situation." He turned to Doris Henderson, who was sitting in the courtroom. "Mrs. Henderson, you thought I was a thief because I didn't look the way you expected. I'm not offended. You just wanted to protect what's dear to you." Doris lowered her eyes, her cheeks flushed. Clint looked at Dwayne. "You, Dwayne, did the same. You saw an old man in an old jacket and decided I was an easy target. I get it, you have a tough job. But next time, ask before grabbing." Dwayne nodded, albeit reluctantly. Finally, Clint turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'm not asking for someone else to be punished. I'm asking for the charges to be dropped and for us all to have a chance to think about how we judge each other." The room fell silent. Judge Crowley leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful. Then he smiled, this time genuinely, without sarcasm. "Mr. Eastwood, I thought you were just an old actor looking for attention. But you've just taught us a real lesson here. The case is closed due to lack of evidence. And you know what? I'd be happy to watch your next film." The gavel struck the table. The room erupted in applause. Retirees in the back row stood, clapping their hands, their faces beaming with excitement. Doris Henderson wiped away a tear, whispering to her friend, "He's just like in the movies." Dwayne approached Clint and extended his hand. "Sorry, sir, I was wrong," he said quietly. Clint shook his hand. "It's okay. Mistakes make us human." As Clint walked out of the courtroom, the sun had already set, and the sky above Phoenix was glowing red. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, and glanced at the box still sitting on the back seat. Smiling, he muttered, "Guess it's time to make those shelves." But the story wasn't over yet. In the crowd, dispersing, stood a man in a hat who watched Clint from the shadows. His face was familiar, Roy Jenkins. He didn't say a word, but in his eyes burned a mix of anger and respect. Was this the end of their feud, or just the beginning of a new chapter? Clint didn't know, but he felt that the truth was still ahead.